All right, so ACOTAR. We're talking ACOTAR today. I have finally caught up on A Court of Thorns and Roses, as in the whole series. And here are my thoughts. So let's just go in order here. Book 1, A Court of Thorns and Roses. It was okay. I like Beauty and the Beast. It's one of my favorite Disney movies, so a Beauty and the Beast retelling with Faye. Sure, why not? I enjoyed it well enough. I did find the end a lot more interesting than the beginning and the middle. Like Under the Mountain. Oh, by the way, this video will contain spoilers. So I did enjoy Under the Mountain more than I enjoyed anything in the Spring Court, because that was kind of dull. In fact, there were points where I really struggled to get through it. But Under the Mountain was interesting, and I think I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I liked it. I liked it well enough. It wasn't my favorite book I ever read, but I did like it enough to keep going. And I think a big part of that was they really set up the need for a sequel well. And by they I mean she's only one writer. But Sarah J. Maas set up the need for a sequel really well with okay, I'm pretty sure his name is pronounced Resand or Resand or something like that. But the first time I saw Rysand, and I can't shake it. I can't. So, Rysand and Feyre, they're, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my god, they mention this word so many times in this freaking book. They're bargain, yes. If it weren't for their bargain, I probably wouldn't have continued the series, because I don't know. We had this kind of milk toast love interest. As far as we know, this is what's going to be throughout the whole series, is this love interest where you're like, okay, you didn't do a damn thing under the mountain, whatever. And he was kind of an asshole anyway. But so is Rysand in this book. He is an asshole. So basically, that's my thought on the book, A Court of Thorns and Roses. It was pretty good. It was interesting. It had a romance. It wasn't the best romance out there. And then there was this side villain who we're getting set up with this bargain that he has with the protagonist, which brings you into book 2. So, A Court of Mist and Fury. I might include a clip of my TikTok on this book, because I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I friggin' loved this book. After I read it, I was just like, the twists, the spice, the romance. I loved it all. I loved A Court of Mist and Fury. It was a little more adult than the first book. We didn't have as many innuendos. We didn't talk about how Tamlin sheathed her, or she sheathed Tamlin, or however you want to look. I don't know. I thought that was gross. Unnecessary innuendo. They went right into it in A Court of Mist and Fury. We're talking cocks. We're talking wetness. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. But that's not why I liked it, because it's probably this series is probably the steamiest thing I've ever read. I've never really been into spice before. I've always been fine with fading the curtains. But yeah, I really like this book. I liked the adventure in it. I liked all the extra characters they added in the Night Court. They really showed Tamlin to be the piece of shit that a lot of us suspected he was at the beginning. I tell you, I like Beauty and the Beast, but I still think the Beast is a shitty person. So I feel like it was still a pretty good Beauty and the Beast retelling that he was kind of a shitty person. So I wasn't exactly surprised that they made him even shittier in the second book. And then we have Rysand, and they really retconned his character. And some of it felt a little too convenient. Well, you see, he did this terrible thing because of X, and he did this terrible thing because of Y. So you see, he's actually a great person. And that felt a little forced. Like, I rolled with it, but I get the feeling that Rysand was never supposed to be this amazing guy love interest. He was always supposed to be kind of a villain kind of thing. And that in the second book, she kind of retconned it and tried to twist her way through it to make it make sense. I don't know, but I really enjoyed this book. Like, it was, I didn't include it in my list of best books that I did earlier. Well, it was a week ago, but it was last year. So, that I did last year. Where I did my 2 favorite and 2 least favorite books. And partially that was because I only had 2 books I really hated and I didn't want to make it uneven. Plus, I didn't rate the whole series 5 stars. I rated this book 5 stars. I liked A Court of Mist and Fury quite a lot. But it's not the whole ACOTAR series. So, let's go into book 3. A Court of Wings and Ruin. This book was pretty good too. I didn't rate it a 5. I think I rated it a 4, but I enjoyed it. It was a pretty good book. The only things I didn't like were now that the romance has been resolved and we have them being mates, we have Feyre being High Lady. Whenever they brought attention to their romance, it was kind of like, okay, mom and dad, we get it. You love each other. Let's move on. It's kind of gross, you know? Whereas when we were waiting for the romance to happen, every little thing, every little tension was like, ooh, this is fun. But now that we know that they're a couple, it's like, so we get it. You love each other. Let's move on. Move on to the action of the plot. I don't want to hear about mates the whole fucking time. But we do. And my main critique of this book, I love queer representation. I love throwing in some queer characters. I'm not complaining that she threw in queer characters. I'm complaining at the way she threw in queer characters. The way she did it. Yeah, so if you go from no queer characters, even in passing, in your first 2 books, but then in your 3rd book, you're like, okay, well, here's this High Lord who swings both ways. And we're going to talk about this, like, lesbian warrior from the Great War. And, oh, by the way, Mor's gay. We're going to make a secondary character gay. 3 in 1 book after 0 and 2, you can tell she was responding to criticism. She was not doing it because she wanted queer representation. She was not doing it because she felt these characters should be queer. She was doing it because someone, I'm guessing a lot of someone, said, these books are published in the teens, where's all the queer characters? And so she's like, ah, shit. Gotta write them in. That's my main critique of A Court of Wings and Ruin. I liked what we saw of the sisters and their powers. I liked the war. It was very interesting. Anytime we weren't focusing on mates and males and females, it was interesting. Another pet peeve I have about this series is the focus on males and females. I get they're not men and women because they're fae, but I feel it's overemphasized, like she's using male where she wouldn't usually use man. She's using female where she usually wouldn't use woman. She's just really emphasizing, by the way, these are fae. They're males and females. And it feels kind of icky to me because it just makes me think of like incels being like females. So there's my kind of catty thought on that. And then let's go on to A Court of Frost and Starlight. I rated this book 2 stars. Why? It was boring. It was almost as bad as Legends and Lattes. It was a little more interesting. We got to see a little more of how Nesta's trauma was playing out, right? And we got different people's perspectives. We didn't just get to see things We didn't get to just see things through Feyre's perspective all the time for once. We got to get a good idea how other characters were feeling and how they perceived the world. But it was boring. It's literally the ACOTAR Christmas special. And I read it during Christmas time, so I was reading it at a good time. But it was boring. There wasn't a whole lot going on plot-wise, which I know a lot of people like in some books. But this is not that kind of series where we have just a Christmas special. It felt weird. It was at least brief. I think it's only like 300 something pages instead of like 800. So that's nice. Thank you, Sarah J. Maas. But it was kind of boring. Like, the main plot was resulting in Feyre, like, opening an art class for children, which was sweet. And also in them deciding to have a baby, which was saccharine. Yay! Mom and Dad are having a baby now, guys. Anyway, it was a little weird how in the same book we're going through multiple points of view, and I'm not talking like the fact we had Feyre, Rhysand, Mor, Cassian, and Nesta. I'm not talking about different characters' perspectives. I'm talking about the fact that Feyre and Rhysand were written in first-person point of view, and everyone else was in third person. It was a little weird. It was really jarring, and I found it really off-putting. So this book, even though it's in a series that I enjoyed, for the most part, I have a couple complaints, I've been ranting. I gave it 2 stars. Sorry. And then the last book, A Court of Silver Flames. I really liked this book. I am kind of done with Feyre. If we get another book from Feyre's perspective, I'm going to be kind of bored with it, honestly. I'm going to be like, great. Another story about Mom. But Nesta, who I always kind of hated because she's such a bitch, you really grow to love her. She's very flawed. I love my characters flawed. And Feyre isn't that flawed. She's this close to being a Mary Sue, especially after she gets all the powers from the High Lords and going into the second book. She's kind of a Mary Sue. And let's see, A Court of Silver Flames. I enjoyed this book a lot. I think it was the longest out of all of them, or at least very close. No. Wanted to show the cover of this one because I literally just finished this book like an hour ago. This book is probably my favorite in this series. I might need to reread A Court of Mist and Fury again to confirm that. The only thing I don't like about this book that kept me from giving it 5 stars is actually the spice. It is the spice of the first 4 books combined and then multiplied by 10. It is downright raunchy. And it's not like I'm a virgin or anything. I have a kid. But I'm like reading these scenes and I'm like, ew. There's just some descriptions that are just flat out gross. And I'm not enjoying them. I don't need to hear about wetness pooling. That's a little too wet. It's a little too much description of wet. Let's just let them be wet in peace, people. And I don't need to know that Cassian's cock is like this fucking big, But man, does Sarah J. Maas tell you? So that's the only reason I didn't give it 5 stars. I did give A Court of Mist and Fury 5 stars. So maybe I liked A Court of Mist and Fury more. I'd have to reread them closer together to know, because I read A Court of Mist and Fury like in August or September. So, my thoughts on A Court of Silver Flames. This book had me bawling. It was so emotional. Nesta's character arc it's beautiful. She goes from this wretch who hates everyone and is always insulting people to having this little found family like Feyre has, but then also having her mate And I guess it's similar to Feyre, except that she had a lot of flaws to start with. And she was a Mary Sue bitch who has all the powers of every court. Although she does have the power of the cauldron. But she loses it in the end, kind of, mostly, to save Feyre and Rhysand and Nyx. Is that the baby's name? I think that's the baby's name. And she says, I love you for the first time, and you're expecting this whole time, oh, she's finally going to tell Cassian she loves him. No, the first time she says it is to Feyre. It's, oh my god, I was crying so much. It was really good. It was really heartfelt. So I really liked the end more than the beginning. I guess kind of like the first one, because the beginning was a lot more porn, and the ending was a lot more emotional and action-filled. But I like this book overall. It was pretty good. So what are my thoughts on A Court of Thorns and Roses? Well, I rated the first, third, and fifth book 4 stars. Then we have a 2-star rating of the 4th book and a 5-star rating of the 2nd. So overall, I guess my stars are about 4 stars. I could calculate the exact amount and put it on the screen, which will be right here. This is the exact amount that I calculated, A Court of Thorns and Roses, the series. But I liked it. I have some complaints. I don't know if I'm going to read more of Sarah J. Maas's work, because I'm a little more interested to see how the series plays out. Like, if we get a story through, like, Moore's perspective, because we never resolved her whole closeted lesbian thing, so I feel like there's still more just based on that and the success of the series as a whole. We'll probably get more of Moore, hopefully. I really hope we do. It'd be cool if she got with someone that we knew, but I don't know who would go with her. Emery, maybe? I don't know. So it'd just be cool to see her stuff, even if she doesn't get a romance, which would be kind of a cop-out because it's a romantasy. To not give the gay character a romance, I'd be disappointed. So never mind, she better get a romance if we get a Moore story. Yeah. But I don't really have much interest in reading Throne of Glass or the Crescent City stories. At least not for a while. I think I've had enough of mates and males and females to last me a lifetime. Or at least a good year. Yep. So, that's my Sarah J. Maas or ACOTAR wrap up. Thank you if you watched this. I am planning to read... What was I planning to read? I am planning to read next the Hunger Games series. I did read the trilogy, 10 years ago. 11 years ago. God, I'm old. Okay, because I was an adult when I read these, so I'm a little old. And I love them. It was the last time a book kept me up at night because I couldn't put it down. I haven't had that experience since, and I couldn't remember the first time I had that experience before that. Maybe the series that must not be named. So, I'm excited to reread it because I want to refresh my memory before reading the prequel, which I have not read yet. And I've never seen the movies, so I'll probably see the movies too. I'm excited. I have both of A Clockwork Reader's journals here. I'm not putting A Court of Silver Flames in my reading journal, and my reason for that is I didn't put the rest of the series, and they're not fresh enough for me to really rant on the page about them. So I'm going to start with my next read of the year, which is going to be The Hunger Games. And also, I got Heartstopper. I think I've already read all this in the webcomic, but I want the whole series, so I'm going to buy this one, and I bought this one, and then I'm going to buy the rest slowly, and then read them all. Pretty excited about that, because I like the series on Netflix, and what I've read on the webcomic. So, anyway, ACOTAR! I finished ACOTAR. And it took me about half a year. All right. Onwards and upwards. Thanks for watching if you watched this, and I'll see you next time. Bye.